just want to interrupt this amazing podcast with a brief message about one of our sponsors, Lombardi Chiropractic in Oneida, New York. I found Dr. Pete 8 years ago due to my continual discomfort and pain in my back, and as an active athlete and someone who likes to play hard, my sessions in the gym started to regress. My sleep went downhill. After a comprehensive evaluation by Dr. Pete's team, I was given a detailed treatment plan. After 3 months of care, my body felt amazing. I have used Dr. Pete as my personal chiropractor for the last 8 years and attribute much of my physical abilities and overall health to his approach with chiropractic care. The good news is Lombardi Chiropractic is offering a 50% discount on the initial exam and x-rays to all new members that use the coupon code A is A. So stop trying to self-diagnose and save yourself time and money by visiting lombardichiropractic.com and schedule your initial consultation today. All right, welcome back everyone to the Co-Movement ASA Health Podcast. Today we've got Andy and I sitting in, and we're gonna chat about what I wish I knew when I first started training.
Yeah, good topic. I don't know, what do you, I've got a few points, you got a few points. Do you want to, I'm wondering how many of ours are gonna overlap. Hopefully we got some different ones from each other, but I know we were on a semi-similar path.
Yeah, for sure.
You wanna hit me with your first one and then we'll alternate?
Yeah. When it's funny because when I took notes for this podcast, I looked way back. Like I started strength training like in 9th grade. And then it's been somewhat, pretty steady all the way through.
You started earlier than me because I began in my senior year of high school.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. And, I went through and I was like with a clean slate, like not thinking of it as, what do the majority of clients do wrong or what do we see? It's like, what did I do wrong?
Yes, that's what I did too. This is, so I wanted to point that out for the listeners this is things I wish that I knew when I started training, but it may not be the things that they wish that they knew or the things that they needed. This is just, my bullet points are, if I could go back in time and speak to my younger self, Andrew at 18 years old or whatever, what would I tell him?
Yes.
But you would tell Josh at 18 or 9th grade, different things. And, the people listening to this would probably tell themselves different things if they went back in time, but hopefully it'll be interesting and useful for them.
Yeah, for sure. So the first thing I think of when I first started training was form first.
Yeah, good one. Yep.
Proper form. And so I know it's sort of cliche, but how many people don't listen to that, right? And when I'm talking about form, obviously, like we want the movement done properly, but within that definition, I'm thinking of full range of motion. Locked arms at the bottom of a chin up, a full depth on a squat, all of these things that when I look back, I would sacrificing form for more weight. You just squat just deep enough to maybe parallel and stand up, same thing with the chin up, maybe elbows were bent at 10 degrees, and the chin was barely over versus chest to the bar,
Yep.
Right. So that was the first thing that came to me. And then I remember the bench press. It was like, we were like doing like a towel on the chest and like, you'd put a board on your chest. Is like anything you could do just to shorten that range of motion up, which is comical because it's, I guess a lot of the purpose is the full range of motion for true health, and true strength. So
this one almost made my list too. It was one that I thought of, and I thought back to myself doing like even just simple bicep curls when I was a teenager and not going to a locked elbow. And the other thing that I thought of was the chin ups, like you said, not going down to a straight arm, full dead hang at the bottom. Why do you think you shortened your range of motion on those things? It was
just to increase reps or weight for sure.
Okay, so it was like how much weight can I put up or how many reps can I do was the ultimate goal. Whereas now what we've learned is that full range of motion is more beneficial than just putting up an extra 5 pounds or something. You don't want to neglect part of what your body can do. The range of motion I can move in.
And I think, the shorter range of motion only benefits those that have developed that range of motion. So if I today were to max out on say chin ups with a 10-degree bent elbow at the bottom versus locked out, my reps would be the same probably because I've now developed the full range, right?
Yep.
So we viewed it as more of a beneficial piece. But in reality, I don't think we had true definitions of what these movements were, right?
Right.
All in the sake of, oh, my buddy did 12. Well, I've got to get 12. And in order to get 12, I'm going to sacrifice this to get there. But we're not really viewing it as a sacrifice.
Yeah. Or my goal is to do a 250-pound bench press. And if I go all the way down to my chest, I can't do that. But if I put that board on my chest, I can.
For absolutely.
And then I hit my
Absolutely.
goal.
Absolutely. When the goal in reality means nothing to nobody, but maybe yourself for a day or two, and
Yep.
then life goes on and you really just, shortage yourself. So, I'm trying to think of any other movements, curls were a good one. Chin-ups, pull-ups.
The chin-ups and the curls were the main two that I could think of for
Okay.
myself. Yeah.
Sure.
But I also didn't do a very wide variety of movements back then. It was like a lot of the basic like bodybuilder stuff that you would find in a magazine in the bookstore. So I mean, it was basically just like curls and bench press,
For sure. So yeah, that's the first one that I could think of. What do you got next?
Well, that kind of ties into, I'll do this one. I wish I'd known to focus more on mobility and flexibility.
That was one of mine. Okay.
I figured that would definitely be one of yours. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, because that's the mistake that everybody makes, right? If we could all go back in time, we'd probably all give ourselves that advice. So I was like in my late teens, like I said, and I didn't care at all about mobility and flexibility. It was boring to me. And I really thought I'd have coaches on my like high school track team and stuff that would talk about flexibility, but it was always just like, oh, you should do a little bit of stretching to reduce injury. It was like pretty much all you ever heard about it. And that didn't really, I was a teenager. I wasn't getting injured. I don't know. I didn't really see like the importance of that. But nowadays I feel like being able to move in as many ranges of motion as possible is super cool. Like these days, I'm more impressed by someone who can do a perfect pancake stretch and get their belly button to the floor, or someone doing head to toe like you've done before, or being able to do the middle splits. I'm more impressed by that than I am by a 2x or 3x body weight bench press. Those goals have become really important to me now. And these days, I'm trying to gain and maintain these ranges of motion because I want to keep my body. My new goal for life is to keep my body moving freely in as large of range of motion as possible for many decades to come, and maintain that for the rest of my life. I don't want to become old and stiff, So
That's a
now,
good point. Yeah.
Now I see flexibility and mobility as crucial to long-term physical health and performance, and just more importantly, just feeling good for the rest of your life. So if I could go back in time, I try to explain that to my younger self. And it's so easy too, like just 10 to 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And you can do it, in your living room on the floor while you're watching TV.
Absolutely.
Practice your pancake stretch or whatever.
Is joint pain or stiffness affecting your quality of life? I personally suffered from knee and lower back pain from my training and hobbies. Since I started taking a scoop of NativePath's collagen every day, I noticed a significant improvement in my joint health. I am able to do more things I enjoy with those I love and care about. I personally recommend everyone try NativePath's collagen for joint recovery and for a variety of other health benefits. NativePath has generously offered all of our listeners 15% off by simply entering the code AISA15 at checkout. That's code AISA15 for 15% off your entire purchase. All of NativePath's products are high purity, organic, grass-fed, and clean. So check out all of the great products they have available at their website, nativepath.com.
For sure. Yeah, I'm 100% with you on all of that. I think of, like you said, it's like a long-term, lifelong goal for your mobility and flexibility. I think of it as fighting rigor mortis.
Yeah, I said, being old and stiff.
Yes, correct. Yep. And so like Ido Portal said that to me years ago, that naturally we gravitate to rigor mortis, which is absolutely true. If you look at like even a middle schooler who has not done much physically, they're already seizing up their bodies. Their hamstrings are tight as shit. Their hip flexors, they have no overhead mobility. That's in 7th grade. We've seen this, and I'm not making that up. It's just through observation. and then obviously with the number of clients we've seen over the years, it gets way worse with age.
Yeah, big time. That goes downhill quick.
Yeah. So strength training is important for sure at all ages, but strength training with the right range of motion, but that only comes through proper mobility.
Yeah.
And mobility training, it depends on the viewpoint you take and maybe the coach you're working with or whatnot, but can be boring. But I think that when you find results with it, it can be fun. So like yesterday we were working with Dave, right? And we were showing hip flexor stretches and stuff. And automatically he was like, man, my back feels better.
Right.
When I started working again with our client, Alex, maybe 6 or 8 months ago, first thing he said was, dude, my back's been killing me over the last year. And in that one session, we did like the couch stretch and some things for the quads. He said he texted me the next day. He said, dude, my back hasn't felt this good in a long time. And so when you seeing those tangible connections.
Yeah, that's why this is good advice for younger kids, because we start to notice those things like a back hurting or whatever when we're in our 40s and so on. And that makes us wish that we had done it back in our early 20s or teens. But those kids, myself, when I was at that age, we don't have those, the back pain or the, any of these issues that limit older people generally. So it's hard to appreciate when you're young, but I would have gone back and tried to explain that to myself.
For sure.
Dude, older you is really going to appreciate this. Do it.
Well, and younger you, because performance goes up if your mobility is better. I can't say that it's a fact based on so many variables, right? But like generally, the better the mover you are via mobility and body control, the better you're going to be athletically and most likely form better muscle fibers, I would argue, but that's not cool to be doing Jefferson curl and pancake stretches when your buddies are bench pressing.
Right.
But the other thing too is like learning and maintaining that range of motion at a younger age or any age, I think is huge for injury prevention. Strength training gets a bad rap because of people getting hurt. It could be form, the first thing we talked about, but the form most likely is broke down because of bad mobility.
Right.
And so at some point you're going to have to get in the game at some level if you want to be a good mover.
Yeah, and typically injuries occur in those more extreme ranges of motion. So if you've trained yourself to be comfortable in those ranges of motion, you've gotten yourself strong. Like mobility is not just the ability to go into a more extreme range of motion, but it's the ability to control that range and be strong in that range. And if you can get yourself to that point, now you're not going to hurt yourself when you're playing a sport and your body, accidentally goes into that range without you expecting it.
For sure. Absolutely. And it goes into real life, slip and falls, right? Like different kinds of weird things like, rolling an ankle. Like there's all these different things that if you develop that better range, then you stand up after and, life goes on.
Brush yourself off and keep going. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What's next?
Okay. Man, I really wish I knew this, and I'm on the train now with this, but max weight isn't king.
Okay, yeah.
So max weight isn't king. So what does that mean? We shouldn't be chasing heavier 1 rep maxes in many cases. If it depends again on your goal, but bigger deadlift, bigger bench, bigger squat for 1 rep, right? We see a ton of people screw themselves up with this. And I think, especially after reading this, I read this paper on the, I think it was Russian Olympic team, that they did the majority of their training at 70% effort.
That's
and
right.
These are Olympic
and they almost
level.
Never go to those higher levels.
Like literally twice a year, they will get close to or max. And those are generally in competitions. And so all I remember is like, this was even up until, probably 8-9 years ago, like, pulling 405 on a deadlift, versus like 325 for 6,
Right.
And yeah, I think there's a lot of negatives that come from that, unless you're needing to do that for a competition or something. But if you really look at like overall athleticism, and you can stay in that 5 to 10 rep range and be amazingly athletic within your endeavor and really never max. Or if you max, maybe you want to consider a 90% effort, right? To just see where you are. But that was something we were always chasing, even in college, right?
Yep. Good. This is a good one because I did the exact same thing, but I did not think to include this one on my list. And it is like an ego thing for kids, wanting to know how much can you lift. But I'd say two things about this. One is, again, going back to the risk of injury, it's always higher risk of injury when you're going for a 1 rep max, because when you're going to your absolute limit or you're going to failure, you're doing something to the utmost intensity, that tends to be where form breaks down. I mean, you might be able to pull 405 for a deadlift, but you're more likely to do it with good form if you're doing, 300. When you're going for your 1 rep max at 405, we're probably going to see the form break down, the background, the legs start twitching, and you're trying to hike the weight up just to get that weight up. So, not chasing those higher numbers all the time and not trying to go for your 1 rep max all the time is a good way to prevent that risk of injury in your training. The other thing I would say though too is that if your goal is strength is a skill, which we often forget. And if you're just doing 1 rep at your 1 rep max, you're not really practicing that skill. Whereas if you're doing a higher volume with a lower weight that you can handle with perfect form, now you're actually practicing the skill of lifting that weight, and you're actually getting stronger because you're developing the skill of strength, knowing how to apply proper leverage, use the right muscles at the right time, maintain proper alignment. You're developing everything the way that it should be.
For sure. And you're greasing that groove, right? Through more reps.
Yes, more
versus
practice.
Yes, for sure. Versus heavy singles for 5 sets and then you're done and your back is killing you and you only got 5 sets, if you really go through like high school sports and college sports, like, which ones really benefit from frequent 1 rep maxes or chasing that 100% effort with lifts? And I don't know, there's not many, I think it would be beneficial to be more in that 70 to 80% range with clean form, good explosiveness, the whole deal. You see colleges, I've seen this quite a bit, will ban certain movements because they consider the movement dangerous. So I saw this at Hamilton College where they were only allowed to do box squats because the bottom of the squat was dangerous. I don't know if that's the case right now. This was a while back, but the strength and conditioning coach at the time, that was the narrative there. And it's like, well,
maybe if you're trying to max out and your students don't know how to do it properly, but if they go lower in weight and they learn the correct technique and they spend some time in the bottom of an astagrass squat, we can actually develop that mobility and strength and that range of motion. And it's not dangerous. It's actually keeps you safer in the long run.
For sure. And then I've also seen no deadlifts because deadlifts are bad for the back. And then I've also seen no Olympic lifts because they're just, it's too high of a risk. And so while all of those are risky, it's risky because you're doing it wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. Start light and learn how to do it correctly. Yeah. Learn the form and technique first.
We want to thank Suttmeier Law Firm for being a podcast show sponsor. Suttmeier Law Firm has worked with numerous clients within our community for years, and they couldn't come more highly recommended. They offer legal advice and representation for a range of residential and commercial real estate law issues. Are you buying a house, refinancing, having mortgage problems, or contract disputes? The team at Suttmeier Law Firm can guide you through these processes. As a special offer to our listeners, they are offering a free consultation when you mention the A is A Health Podcast. Visit their website at suttmeierlaw.com or call 315-363-7777 today.